Okay, so I am in project 7-6 and completed steps 1 through 9, and actually 1 through 10. And you'll see that I've deleted the data that was in cells A3 through D23 in this calorie tracking worksheet. So that's empty. And so starting with step 11, it's instructed me to select B3 through B33. And we're going to do a little data validation to make sure that the person who enters the date does it in the format that is given in the directions. So what we're going to do is we're going to go under the data ribbon and we're going to select the data validation option in the data tools group, and then that first option, data validation. And in the setting options, it has you change the allow for just a date. That's the only thing that this particular column will accept is a date. And the date needs to be less than or equal to the date that is today. Okay, so it can't be anything that's in the future. It has to either be a day that's equal to the date today, or it has to be in the past. Okay, that's all that's setting the guideline for. And then it also wants you to add an error alert message. And you can find that over on this tab here. And it wants the particular style to be a stop. So when someone tries to enter something else that's not a date, a little error message will come up, and it instructs you to make the title of that check date, which you see right here, and the error message must be date must be today or in the past. Okay, and remember, we've already set that guideline over here in the settings tab, but this error message further instructs them on that guideline or informs them of that guideline. Okay, so the data validation has been set. We'll click OK. And then the next step wants us to add what's called a combo box, which you learned a little bit about in the sim book. And before we do that, we need to unlock these cells. So, because what's going to happen is what we're going to make this is some kind of form. And the user will go in and enter the information, and they'll only be able to enter information in cells A3 down to D33. All the other cells and the rest of the worksheet will be locked, meaning nothing else can be changed, which makes it so it protects the worksheet so someone doesn't accidentally delete like the column headings or this nice little graphic we have up here. It just kind of makes it that only certain fields can have data inputted into them. Okay, so the way you do that is you're just going to highlight cells A3 over to D3 and down the range to D33. And then we're going to go on the Home ribbon and select the Format option from the Cells group. Scrolling down, we're going to go to the very bottom option, Format Cells. Right now, under the Protection tab, I have Locked selected. I'm going to just deselect that and click OK. Okay, so now those cells have been unlocked, and later on in the final steps of this project, when you go to protect the worksheet so that nothing can be changed, it will exclude these cells that I've just selected and unlocked. So by deselecting locked, you're essentially unlocking certain cells so that data can be entered into them. Okay, moving on now to step number 13. We're going to click on the Developer ribbon here, and we're going to go to the Insert option in the Controls group, and we're going to create that combo control box that I talked to you about. And then it brings up this form control dialog box. Here's a button. That's the most basic form option. Combo control gives you the option to put in a list and select from that list, so it's a bit more sophisticated than just clicking a button. And if you're not sure which is which, just move your mouse pointer over it and you'll see that there's a little tagline there below that tells you what kind of form control that is. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. Let's see, first let's click on the data ribbon. And then I'm going to click on that. So we'll do insert. Oh, okay. So it's ready to go for me to click and drag and select and designate my form control area. And it wants you to do it right over cell F8. So here's cell F8 on the data worksheet. I'm going to click in the corner of that cell and drag until it covers the entire cell. And I was a little bit short here on the left-hand side, so you notice when I move my mouse pointer, it becomes that double-sided arrow. I'm going to click and drag it and move it just a tidge more to the left. Okay, so what it wants me to do then is now give the settings, designate the settings for this form control, or excuse me, this combo control box. So first thing it wants me to do is the list that's going to show up when somebody clicks that down arrow is this first, second, and third, fourth quarter over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right-click on this combo box control, and then I'm going to select Format Control from the shortcut menu. And this time I'm going to go to the Control tab, and we're going to designate that input range. I'm going to click on this arrow here, which allows me to go out into the worksheet and select the range that I need. So I'm going to click on the first here at the top of the list and expand the marching ants down to fourth here. And then I'm going to click back into this little box here and hit enter. And that kind of locks in that range into that into the dialog box. This time I'm just going to, since I can't, it's hard to click, I can't really select this cell without selecting the combo box control. So I'm going to just type in F8 here, because that's going to be our cell link where that combo box is. And then I'm going to click OK. All right. So before you can, it wants you to then select second from the list. Since I can't do that until this combo box control is deselected, I'm going to click somewhere in my worksheet. Now I can then click the down arrow, and here is the input range that we designated, and I'm going to select second. Okay, and underneath this, if you moved the control box, you could see that 2 appears underneath. But because we have the nice little combo box right over that cell, you don't see that. Okay, so it looks just like we've created this slick little form here. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the hospital seminars worksheet tab, and it's going to, we're going to add to this title here, but we're going to do the concat function, which basically takes 2 pieces of text and puts them together. It's kind of like a glue text. So you take one piece of separate text, another piece of separate text, and glue it together, and it makes it look like it's a whole, or just one piece of text. So one thing though, just to notice, if I click in cell D4, if I start typing, even though I'm in D4, it shows up here in the center, and that's because when they created the worksheet, they already centered across selection, meaning they selected cells D4 through G4 and then highlighted or selected center across selection. So anything that we put in there is going to be automatically centered over those columns. So I'm going to backspace that out. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to use the concat function like I told you, but we're also going to combine with it as well the index function. And the index function allows us to make the concat function dynamic, meaning we can change the text that's inserted depending on what we designate as the lookup value. Remember, with the index function, you specify a range and a column and a lookup value, and Excel will take that lookup value and find it within the range in the column and return it for you. Okay, so let's start. And the thing I don't like about this, the directions, is that it has you use the insert function option to complete this, and I think it makes it unnecessarily complicated. So I'm going to demonstrate how to just type it in manually and then explain what's happening in that function. I think it's much easier. I've uploaded it to SimNet. It doesn't affect the SimNet grading at all. So I would do this method if I were you. So we're going to start with our equal sign. Again, I'm clicked in D4, but because of the center cross selection, it's showing up in the E column here. Okay, so we're going to start by typing concat, and then we're going to hit close or left parentheses, and then are going to start our next function. And notice for the concat function, the first argument you can see is text1, comma, text2, comma, etc. And what it's going to do is it would combine all those separate texts into one whole text, okay, that looks like it was written together, even though it's separate little pieces here and there glued together. And then we're going to add the index function as our first text. We're going to start that. I'm going to hit left parentheses. Okay, and you notice in the argument here below that it shows, we're going to start with the array and then the row number. Okay, so the array for our index function is going to be those cells G8 through G11 on the data worksheet, the same list that we used for our combo box control. So I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to highlight that again. Okay, and then I'm going to click back up here, and then I'm going to hit comma. And then the next part of the argument is we're looking for the row number. Okay, and the row number is going to be whatever is selected in this little combo box control. Again, here's that dynamic piece. It's going to change. So what we're going to use for the row number is whatever is displayed in cell F8 on the data worksheet. And again, because this formula is appearing on the hospital seminars worksheet, you need to make sure to add the name of the worksheet first, because it's a different worksheet than the hospital seminars worksheet. So data, exclamation point, F8. Okay, the reason I type that in rather than selecting it like I did the array, the G8 through G11, is because it's hard. I can't really select it when the combo box is on there. It'll just kind of select the combo box. So I'm just going to type it in manually here. So capital D for data, exclamation point F8, and then I'm going to close that parentheses. Okay, and I'm going to hit comma, because again, we closed the index function, and now we're going back to the concat function, and you can see that once I close that function with the right parentheses, Excel knows, okay, that function has been entered, the arguments are done, but it's inside a concat function, so let's go back to that and finish whatever else we're going to add to that concat function. And you'll see that the concat function arguments show up below here. Okay, so now it's waiting. Okay, so you've got text 1. What do you want to make for text 2? So per the instructions in step 17, what it wants us to concat is whatever quarter is displayed here, comma, and then have the word quarter appeared after it. So it'll say second quarter if second quarter is selected. It'll have third quarter if third quarter is selected. So the way you do that is after the comma, you're going to put a quotation mark. Because remember, whenever we have in quotations in Excel, the text will appear exactly as it is written within the quotation marks. And I'm going to add a space bar or a space, because if I don't, it's going to smash the name of the quarter with quarter. So I'd have second quarter smashed together with no space in between, which would look very strange. And then I'm going to put capital Q quarter, close quote, close right parentheses. Okay? All right, now I'm going to hit enter. Okay, now don't worry about this little error thing up here. To see the little left, it's saying it's unprotected right now. Just click ignore error. It's okay, because you'll do that later with. I've already gone through this worksheet a few times. Some of it's protected, some of it's not, and so that's why it appeared. Don't worry about it. Okay, and the next part of that step is to then change the font, which I had done previously, to, if you look on the home row, it needs to be bold, italicized, and also 16 point. Okay, so you can see we've got second quarter showing here. We took whatever quarter is being displayed here on the data worksheet,
and then we concatenated it or concated it. I don't know. I don't even know if that's a real verb, but with